Well, thanks for joining. Thanks everyone else for tuning in as well. Can you hear me all right? Seems to be a bit of an echo. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so why are we here today? To talk about Right Side Coffee and what you guys do over there, and what we can learn from all of your best practices, as far as I'm concerned anyways. So I'd say let's jump right in and maybe start by you telling us a little bit about who you are and what Right Side Coffee is and what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, so I'm Joaquín Parra. I'm the head roaster of Right Side and green coffee buyer. Basically, in 2012, we start a dream, roasting a specialty coffee in Spain, which was challenging with top quality. And then we move forward in order to improve our technique roasting, improving our tools, so our roasting machine, and then, of course, the raw material, which is green coffee. And yeah, then we start developing some direct trade together with the different partners that we were finding in the way. And yeah, then we start working with them together. And I personally felt attracted by the fermentation process, how to improve in the post-cosecha, post-harvest techniques. And I invested a lot of time studying or trying and doing some mistakes. But now we know more about what we are doing. And yeah, I think that it's a short presentation.
Let's go back. You're based just outside Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we know each other is that before I moved to the UK, I came to Spain to work with you guys, which was the experience of a lifetime. And I'm very grateful to you for teaching me the art and craft and science of roasting. So if we go back to the beginning, then 2012, if I remember correctly, you just got out of uni. What made you decide to go into roasting then? Why set up your own roastery?
My first touch with green coffee was in my family business. Then was like different step where people is starting. I started as a green coffee buyer or working for a green coffee importer, and there I was in touch with competitions and so on. Then I realized that my passion was coffee and high quality coffee. And then I was roasting for competition, but nothing was happening in the regular life. So we decided to set up a roastery offering the best coffees as possible in order to just discover something that is very common as a single product. But yeah, it's wonderful, the diversity of flavors that we can find in a cup of coffee. So yeah, this was the main reason.
And back then in Spain, that's why you were laughing in the beginning, I suspect. Specialty coffee hadn't really taken off in Spain yet, at least not at the same level that it has by now. Barcelona has a pretty thriving coffee scene in 2021. But back then, you were one of the first specialty coffee roasters in Spain, weren't you?
Yeah, in that time, Yeah, only basically my family with Café de Finca was doing something different. Then we try to build our own ideas and convert in reality. And then some guys like Nomad or something like these kind of projects help to build a market. And now I think that the diversity in Barcelona is good. Is increasing day by day. So yeah, I think that it's a good scene if the COVID it's always that
COVID
this
hasn't come and
word
destroy everything.
in the conversations, but yeah,
Yeah,
if COVID allow us, maybe we can do something different.
yeah. Let's hope so. I mean, the coffee scene in Barcelona was amazing, and even though COVID has put a damper on things, everywhere really, I'm sure Barcelona will bounce back and
Yeah,
coffee will be great again.
of course.
All right. So in 2012, you were one of the first specialty roasters in Barcelona. You already had a background in green coffee with your family business, as you said. Um, Tell us a bit more about how you source your green coffee back
Hmm.
then and today.
Yeah, something important that I forget to tell is that our first step was roasting in a garage. So it was kind of underground roastery, but it was the only way to start with a so tiny investment. So yeah, and then your question. So at the beginning was difficult to be focused on something because we want to explore too much. We wanted to go to as much of countries we could, but then when we put this in practice was really, really difficult. So we decided to focus on some countries. We are Spanish speakers, so America Latina was a very interesting goal for us because there the language is not a wall that we are lacking some communications in the two parts. So it was our main stage to build our direct trade program or something. And we start traveling to El Salvador. We start working with the farms at Santa Petrona of La Familia Pacas. We learn a lot with them. Then in 2013, we visit Guatemala, also Honduras, also Mexico, which was really exotic country. And also they have a very good technique on fermentations and so on. So for that reason, we visit together with my friend Fabricio Sencion, who is one of the best baristas in the world. And we met Enrique from of Finca Chelín. Then we realized that fermentation was complex, was affecting to flavors, and the impact in quality was huge. Then the relationships with some farmers were changing because the first touch with every single origin was the big guys, main exporters, focus on specialty coffee. And then we wanted to go one step forward and say, okay, we want to have a higher impact um, in the economy and in the familiar economy, and also, yeah, I don't know, just something that you feel that you want to change and you want to help people, and if you help people, then they are gonna help you. It's easy and really basic human feeling, no? So then we start changing the strategy, and we got like, for example, we are working in Colombia with a really deep way negotiating the prices directly to the farmers. Then we know exactly the amount of money that the exporter is charging to them, and we felt really comfortable with this transparency. So and the most important thing, because we pay very well, but the coffee should be amazing, because if you build something unique as a relationship, then you have a good friend, but you need to receive something that the market is interested to. So actually was like really complex at the beginning, but then we realized that we are, I think, that doing something unique and building this kind of relationships together with amazing quality.
Okay, let's go back a step or two, and let me ask you. I mean, starting out your own coffee roastery is a challenge in itself. You know, even in a first world place like Spain, setting everything up, getting everything going, building a brand. How, like, what made you decide to, on top of that, then go into direct trade and not, you know, why not just use or work with coffee importers like most roasteries do? That would make life a lot easier in some regards, wouldn't it?
Uh, I think that the main reason is because I'm really perfectionist talking about flavors, and it was difficult to find the quality that I was expecting from a sort of another green coffee buyer. Um, and I think that this is the main reason, I think. I just wanted to know where the top of the limit is, no? Talking about quality, and I don't know. I was, maybe it was like an intuition, something like that. It doesn't work. The reason it's not because I got a specific plan and everything I studied or whatever. No, it's something that I just follow my intuition, I think.
Coffee instincts, yeah. We've got plenty of those, knowing you a little bit. Okay, so you set up your own roastery. You were absolutely obsessed with finding the best quality the coffee world has to offer, and so you felt like you really needed to get out there and look for it yourself. So how did you go about that? I mean, you know, I would love to go to Latin America and find coffee, but I don't know anyone there. So what do you do? Like how do you start?
I mean, um, yeah, always that I think that I just break the wall before I started, because the guy who was teaching me about roasting or about cupping was doing this basically. So I was really lucky that in my family the, the the quality control was doing by John Villasen, who was a Norwegian guy coming to Spain and trying to do something different. So I guess that I feel confident because I had an example to follow. Then, of course, that once you are doing this, and then you are the main actor in the history, then you have to find solutions for the problems that you are finding in the way. But I guess that, yeah, doing some research on Cup of Excellence or different producers, championships or whatever, then you can find good qualities, and then you can start thinking about how to build these kind of relationships.
Mm-hmm. So you, from the beginning, you were looking for contact with farmers, because I know that in Colombia, for example, they have a big national coffee association that does a lot of the logistical stuff surrounding export of coffee and quality assessment and things like that. Did you go the route of of making contact with those types of players in the market, or were you actually looking for coffee farmers directly and then just hunting down their contact details or showing up at their farm? Or
my first contact in Colombia was with a big exporter. Then we were capping, and then people, and then these people have amazing projects like cooperatives that you should know them. Then you visit, and then you start a relationship with them. It's a kind of 1, 2, 3, more than something like mystic or whatever. It's like simple steps that build something complex, and then you are taking decisions, and then you are right or wrong, I guess. But yes, for example, in Guatemala, I contact with Ana Cafe, and they put me in contact with some people some cooperatives or big producers or whatever, and of course that this way is helpful to explore.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say? And I know this is a hard question to answer because obviously you're active in different countries in Latin America, and I imagine it's different at every origin. There are different challenges, but what are some of the major challenges that you had to overcome in order to finally source your own green coffee and build relationships with farmers at origin?
But your question is, sorry?
What are some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome to build those relationships?
Okay. Cocaine. Yeah, cocaine. It's one of the worst enemies against coffee, because sometimes the farmer, for them, is more rentable. I don't know the
Lucrative, or more
lucrative for them to plant this kind of plant than another ones. Then in the border with when you are going up, a lot of people is washing money with coffee, and it's kind of difficult to build relationships. Then trust on farmers, and I got positive and negative feelings or relationships or whatever with the different farmers. And this is the most difficult thing, I guess, because it's a business built with trust. If one of the other side is not behaving well, then you have to be really patient and analyze what you have to do, what is affecting to you, into your business, or what is the position in the market of this product that you have invested, for example, 3 years going there, time, knowledge, and then is something wrong. But yeah, I guess that these also logistics, depending on different countries, could be really challenging. For example, Ethiopia, where the bureaucracy is really hard, and you have to do very well different steps in order to avoid delays or whatever. And I think that yeah, I think enough. We got enough. Let's be positive.
Oh yeah, and at the end of the day, you have managed to overcome those challenges, right? I know, because I have some of your amazing coffees in my warehouse right now. So, yeah, I mean, just for me as a coffee roaster as well now, it's just it seems like, you know, from the outside looking in to how to handle this whole logistics chain and how to navigate those relationships. It seems like a huge mountain where I wouldn't even know how to start, and you just always made it look so easy, even though I know that, you know, there have been moments for you as well where you were close to going crazy because things happened, and, you know, there were miscommunications, and then, you know, maybe something gets stuck along the way, and things like that. So I imagine a lot of patience is involved in making it all happen as well.
I guess that is my best strength. Be patient and try to relax when things are going to, yeah, as you are not expecting. But I guess that it's easy to when you have an example and then you detect the things that you maybe you are doing in another way or something, then I guess that I grow in this coffee market since I was a child, and I understood things in a very natural way, and I guess that is how we are approaching this, no? Just with simplicity and naturality, and trying to be really good capper, because it's the only way where you can see what is happening or what is going wrong or not. So I actually
being a good cupper, meaning tasting the coffee and being good at tasting coffee.
I personally felt like really attracted with this role, no? Being trying to detect what is quality or what is a defect or yeah, I remember when we did a lot the Pacamara shake, not big Mr. Sunshine. Sorry,
Yeah.
I just mixed. And the first experimental lot that we taste was vinegar, so was a defect. But then I just see potential on it, trying to do it more balanced and try to avoid this really high acidity. But the flavor was like really interesting. So we just changed a few things, and then Raul with this lot or with this fermentation won the Cup of Excellence that year, which was like, okay, so it's good. You have to, when you are doing this kind of steps, then it's you feel like confident in yourself, no? You are doing things right. You take a risk, but then it's good. So I guess that taking risk, it's another thing that you have to do, and you have to optimize, no, in order to don't put in risk the producers, and yeah, trying to that always they have a positive impact.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I want to come back to that aspect, but maybe first you can kind of walk us through the process of how you get, if we pick one specific coffee, I don't know, from one origin, maybe Colombia, because I know that things are going fairly well with your farmer and cooperations there. Maybe you can just walk us through the process of how you get to the point where this specific coffee ends up in your warehouse. What are the steps along the way that you have to manage and take care of?
In that, in this case, we or in this case, I participate in a regional championship. Then
In Colombia.
in Colombia, yeah, in Huila. Then we were tasting like 100 and something different farmers. So you got like a big aspect of what is happening in this region. So when you know the potential, maybe what you need is just taste as much coffees as possible. So we basically find a group of farmers that were producing really good coffee, and then we visit all the farms, and then we visit all the families, and we got an idea. For example, Elber Novoa, it's an amazing producer, producing a really standard quality, high standard quality, really consistent. And we see that the infrastructures that Elber had, where we could improve it, we pay very well, and then he start building a new coffee dryer. Then you are doing suggestions in the fermentation, then he's doing it. And yeah, I think that it's the way, you know, listen, think, and then make a suggestion. Also, another important thing for me is the generational change that some producers are gonna have in a short term or long run. And of
What do you
course,
mean by that?
Hmm?
What do you mean by that, generational change?
For example, if the producer is producing amazing coffee, but he's old, like 60 years old or something, it's like something that you have to understand that this kind of personality needs another thing that some guy who is starting and he want to learn, and you can do in the first case some tips, but you have to be really careful with the comments, and you have to ganar la confianza,
To
win the
gain trust, yeah.
generate the trust slowly. And this is something that empathy, I think that it's a good tool for building this kind of relationships. And then we got another example. So Elbert is this kind of guy who is older but still open-minded. And then we have the other extreme, which was Hermanos Contreras. Hermanos Contreras, they are brothers. I think that one of them is having my same. So we are the same. We are 34 years old, and then some of them are older and younger. So in this case, it's perfect to explore different options. Or in this case, you have to be careful with the risk that your comments are gonna do, because, for example, if you say no, you have to plant whatever geisha, okay, and then they invest a lot of money in seeds or whatever, and then you are not gonna buy everything, then you have done the half of the job. So I'm always trying to buy. I really like to work with small holders, because you can buy the whole production, and it means for them that if your business is going healthy, you are gonna buy always their coffee, because, or in my case, is what I'm doing. Even last year, which was really challenging because the consumption was going really low. We keep the same quantities that we confirm the whole year. So it was a really challenging year, but yeah, really, I feel really glad of what we are doing, and also with people like you that are doing this job easier, of course.
By getting together as small roasters. This is something that we briefly touched on in the last Kontext Coffee chat as well, that I had with Leonard from this side up. I mean, it is a different coffee sourcing model to, for you as an individual roaster to go out there and buy your own green coffee. But logistically speaking, unless you buy a rather large quantity, it is really expensive and hard to move that raw material, the green coffee, from origin to where you need it to be in Barcelona.
Yeah.
And so how did you, especially when you started and when the business wasn't the size that it is now, how did you go about that? Because, I don't know when you started how many bags of coffee you were able to buy from these farmers, but I imagine it wasn't a container to start with, right? A shipping container.
Unfortunately, it wasn't the scenario. In that time, it was easier because I moved the coffee with my family business, and it was much more easier. Then I realized that I wanted to do independent, and we start exploring different options, collaborating with different green coffee importers, but sorting our own product. And then the business was growing, and we focused the different purchase into different countries in order to have a certain volume to have reasonable cost of logistics. And yes, I think that was like that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so essentially, just to sort of summarize your approach to it, when you first started out, you talking about Colombia, you were looking for events like this national competition where you had the chance to taste as many coffees in one place as possible, and that's how you got aware of individual farmers that were producing qualities to the standard that you had in mind when you set out to find these coffees. And then you just basically went to the farms, met the farmers, met the families, had a look around, and also assessed their needs, right? In order to be able to see how you could help, other than just buying their coffee, how you could help them, to keep improving, basically. And so then when it comes to the point where you have agreed that you're going to buy some of their coffee, or if you're working with smaller farmers, maybe even all of their coffee, because obviously price is a big issue in the coffee world, the price the farmers get paid. How do you start that conversation? Like, how do you find the fair price, or how do you know what a fair price for those coffees is? How do you start that conversation with the farmer?
It's difficult because every single country, it's just a different history.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to negotiate. You have to ask different actors in the country, have like an idea of what the prices are for different qualities, and yes, and then you have to take your own conclusions and say, okay, so the average price is this. You want to pay more, or you want to push? There are different strategies that the different actors or different green coffee buyers are doing. Also, depending on the intermediarios,
The middlemen.
That you are having. So, for example, if you are working with an exporter and then they are buying coffee from another farmer, actually the price that the farmer is receiving is a percentage probably very, very low of what you are paying. But if you are trying to control and you find people who work with transparency and they are okay just doing the milling or whatever because you are doing the sort and the work of finding these producers, blah blah blah. Yeah, I think that listening to you was like, okay, it's a ton of hours that I was just investing, but I didn't realize about the effort that I've done probably.
Life when you're having fun, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah, you are just doing, and you are having fun or not, but you are learning, and this curiosity, it's life, no? We have to keep going, this little child inside of us, and trying to keep curious and trying to learn of everyone. So simple as that. Then you take your own conclusions, and then you realize who is fucking you. And then it's like, okay, this motherfucker is trying to okay, so then out, and then you start with another guy, and then you consolidate the good relationships, and then okay, so let's keep rolling this.
So it's a learning process, like everything in life, huh?
Yeah, I guess.
Okay, just, because it's still, even now, it's still hard for me to really understand all the different steps that are necessary in order to get those green beans into European ports. If we stick with the example of Elber Novoa, who, by the way, is the producer of our San Luis Colombian coffee that we've been having in our product range until recently, but which will come back with the new harvest from Elber. If we stick with that guy, so you've met him, you've been to his farm, you've diplomatically given your input and your ideas about quality, and have sort of negotiated with him over the, how long have you known him?
4 years now.
4 years.
You know?
Okay. And so
Yeah.
I imagine it's a process that goes step by step, developing that relationship, and then, sort of giving your ideas of the things that he might try on his farm. As you said, he's built a new drying facility for his coffee, and then you get to the point where you commit to buying a certain quantity of his coffee, and at that stage the coffee is at his farm as coffee, or
yeah, and they know they have a pricing table that, for example, 86, the price is this, 86.5 is this, and then they could feel incentivized in order to produce higher qualities.
And where does that pricing table come from?
I mean, from my experience and related with the market price, and also depending on the work that they have to do. For example, when they are producing naturals, the work in our recipes is tough, so we are paying higher prices. Even the quality will be 86, so we pay higher when they are producing naturals, basically.
Okay.
Yeah, depending on the the quantity of time that they are investing on each product. So I did this, but basically every year or regular year we are visiting them, or I'm visiting them. For example, in this case is in Colombia, is November, October, so just at the beginning of the crop. Then I could taste the first lots that they are producing. I could have an idea of the quality and so on. I'm coming back to Spain, and I wait until the end of the harvest. some importers, what they want is buy fast in order to receive the product, the first one, for example, in Europe, and then they could sell because it's the first shot, let's say, in Europe. In our case, what we are doing is waiting until the highest altitudes are having the product done and ready to be processed. And it's January, February, in the case of Colombia, when we receive the samples, the pre-shipment samples, then we taste it, then we say, okay, this is the prices that we are going to pay related with the quality that the lots are having.
And is the farmer himself, is Elver sending you those samples, or how
In this case, it's the cooperative. The cooperative sent us the different samples, and their role in this game is basically clean the coffee, put the coffee in Grain Pro, and then in jute bags, and put them into a container and move the container to Cartagena, ship it, and then the boat is coming to Barcelona. Then we compare the pre-shipment with the arrivals. Everything is okay, and then we pay, and then we post it and we sell it. Yeah.
Okay. So Elver Novoa is part of is it farmers cooperative then that does all the handling?
Yeah.
And they are basically taking on the role as the exporter. Then,
yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The license of exporting. Normally, if the producer is too small, then you need a partner of them. And actually, in this case, this cooperative is helping them with agronomist engineers in order to have a stable production yield and so on. So this is important for consistency income of them.
Yeah. Okay. Because I think all of these details are details that not even I, as a roaster myself, am always aware of, let alone the end consumer, you know, my customers, your customers who sit at home sipping the coffees that we've roasted for them. Because I think it's such a romantic notion, you know, direct trade coffee, and it, you know, you have this picture in your mind of people like you going to Origin, being good friends with people like Elver Novoa, and then it's almost, you know, in our minds, maybe the picture is almost like when you leave to go back to Spain, you're carrying the coffee bags on your shoulder with you or whatever. That's not quite how it works, but there are good reasons for it. As you said, the farmers cooperative, that's the middleman in this case, serves a very important function in this relationship, because they eliminate a huge amount of risk for the farmers as well, right? I mean, they give inputs in terms of education and advice and help, and they take care of some of the post-harvest processing that is necessary, that can't be done at farm level, especially with smaller farms. And then they take care of the whole logistics surrounding getting the coffees off the farm into the next port, and you know, all the steps in between. I think
it's something that we cannot do for the farmers. So it's a really important role that this middleman that is helping them to receive a fair price, because what they are just charging is the cost of as you said, as handling. So it's amazing to find people who work in this way, and always that it's our goal. Try to set up relationships like this, and of course, then the relationship will happen something, and then you need to solve some problems because it's not everything sweet. But yeah, it's something. Yeah, such is life. No, you have to solve problems all the time.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. And I just forgot. I was so mesmerized by what you were saying. I just forgot what I wanted to ask. Oh yeah. So when we get back to the idea of direct trade, then, because as I said, I think a lot of people, when they think of direct trade, they might be disappointed to learn that it's not actually just money going directly from your bank account to El Novoa's bank account, but that there are a couple of roles in between that are crucial for this whole process to be smooth. What would you say? What's your personal definition of direct trade then? What is necessary to make direct trade function?
Mm, I think that the main thing is transparency. Depending on the transparency degree of this middleman, the exporter mainly, then you can go deeper or not. So let's say that there are different degrees of direct trade. This example, and then you have Ethiopia, for example, where you have a really strict system that now seems to be reopening, but it's difficult to have this deepness in a country like this or Kenya. It's basically the same. And as I said, also the language, it's sometimes building a wall in the two parts of that of the relationship. Yeah, I think that direct trade, it's not always the same, I guess. I think that depending on the time or the lag that you are having in order to find these certain people who are going to help you better or not, then you build a better relationship of direct trade. But yeah, I guess that is, again, like everything in life, no? It's my definition will be just making business with people, no? Trying to reach the guy who is producing the coffee, but then you are gonna find some little walls that you need to jump, or just tirar abajo, no? The walls.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that it's I know that it's the definition. It's like not very precise, but it's a complex action. So let's say that we could find different degrees in. It would be actually a good point, no? Communicate the degree of direct trade that we have in the different countries. I think, yeah, I just got the idea now.
Yeah, but I think it's again important to emphasize, as you said before, that this degree of direct trade isn't always necessarily due to your individual action, but in some cases, like Ethiopia, dictated by the system within the country. For example,
Yes,
in
the
Ethiopia,
context.
this is a system that's imposed by the state, right? For decades now, the state has set a fairly strict and rigid system of how coffee is traded from Ethiopia to the rest of the world. And for the longest time, there wasn't a whole lot of transparency or traceability for that matter. And things are changing slowly, but that kind of binds your hands as the person wanting to buy the coffee then, because in some cases, as I remember, there literally is no way of tracing the coffee that you're buying via the country's coffee exchange, which is basically, like a what do you call it? Yeah, like the financial exchange in London. To trace the coffee from there back to farm level was impossible, because somewhere in the middle of this path, all the coffee just got dumped on one big heap, and from there it couldn't be separated anymore, right? So you can only know from which region or which village or which area of Ethiopia the coffee comes, but you couldn't know who the actual name who produced the coffee. And that's changing, but it's slow. And so that's
Yeah, a few years ago, the only way that you had for this kind of relationships was find an exporter who was also farming his or her coffee. No other way to have this thing, no? Yeah. So now it seems that it's changing, and hopefully soon we could travel and visit the farmers that we are working with. Of course, that in this case won't be so easy as Colombia or Nicaragua or Honduras, where, for example, in Honduras, when I'm visiting Darwin, I love to sleep in his house in the middle of nowhere, and his mother is always cooking or whatever. I'm talking with them, and yeah, this Spanish tool, it's really good, but in Ethiopia it will be much more difficult, of course.
because of the language barrier, and I guess culturally as well. Speaking
Of course.
Spanish brings you closer in Latin
Yeah.
America.
Yeah.
Super interesting and exciting. We've touched briefly on, because I think that's what makes a lot of the coffees that I buy from you really special. Is you said that from the beginning it wasn't just about finding quality and building relationships with the farmers, but one of your personal interests and motivations was also to learn as much as you can about basically the post-harvest processing of the coffee when it gets picked from the coffee trees. So maybe you can tell us a little bit more about all the exciting experiments that you do, and well, the sort of getting your hands dirty part of what you do at Origin.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, as all the I don't know the name in English, neck of production, cuello de botella.
Yeah,
Well,
the bottleneck, you mean?
bottleneck. Yeah. Some decisions are taken because this bottleneck needs speed, needs to do the process quicker, and it was what we realized with fermentations. Producers, what they wanted sometimes was do it really fast, because they don't want to spend a lot of time, or they have a huge crop, and then they need to ferment really, really fast in order to ferment, wash, and then dry the coffee as quicker as possible.
Can you rewind one step, and just because I'm not sure everyone actually knows why that bottleneck would come about. Coffee, we've said it a couple of times before, coffee is essentially cherries growing on a tree. And during harvest season, especially with specialty coffee, it's essential to pick the coffee when it's at its optimum ripeness, essentially. And so once you've picked the cherries off the tree, you have what, about 24, 48 hours to do something with these cherries? Because if it doesn't happen within that window, then wild fermentation sets in and you're at risk of ruining the coffee. Is that the bottleneck you're talking about? Or
Yeah, you explain perfect. Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I just visiting a lot of different beneficios. Dry and wet mills. I realized that the process was done as fastest as possible. So we realized also, because in 2012 I was in touch with Team Wandelbo, and I tasted some lots that the drying process was under shade, and other ones was directly in sun. So once, of course, the sun, the process was much more faster than under shade, and the cupping profile, the flavors were absolutely different. So I guess that this was one of the critical points, no, where I realized that the green coffee, or the seeds, are really sensitive to these kind of practices. And then I realized that the same was happening when they were depulping the cherries, and some of them were directly fermenting with sun in order to ferment in 8 hours. And then we say, okay, let's do one thing. Let's do some testing. Let's choose some producers that we could do it, because the wet mill is in the right place to do it. And then let's start to make the fermentations longer. Then we start reducing the presence of oxygen in order to make the metabolism a little bit more slower, and see how it affects to the final quality. And the results were amazing, and it has sense. I mean, it's happening in all the fermentation, the fermented products that we are consuming. Why not? Is not going to happen into coffee. Then we start learning about more about fermentation, doing more and more tests, and then we define some recipes, easy to do it, in order to don't put some walls to the producers, and just at least economic walls, or barriers, and then we create like 3-4 different recipes.
so you
That
mean with economic walls, you mean you came up with processes that were easy to implement without causing any extra cost for the producer, essentially.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Or at least really small, really small investment that basically everyone could do it with the price that we are paying. So even sometimes in the first visit, what we are doing is pay the necessities that they have, and then they have all the tools, so it's okay. Yeah. So yeah, and then exchanging knowledge with people who is in touch, and also you are having some talks with them, then suddenly you have an idea, and let's do it. And yeah, the result is okay. I think that a lot of creativity in this side, we are lacking a lot of creativity in the coffee market in this certain point, because remember that producers are not tasting their own coffee in the majority of the times. So it's difficult for them to understand what they are doing. So yeah, I guess that sometimes you need to act as their eyes or their mouth, and try to communicate with them, try to understand what they are doing, and try to find collective solutions.
But again, that's something that you say as though it was an easy thing, because I mean, on the one hand, as you said, it's very common for a coffee producer not to really know what their coffee actually tastes like, because they usually just sell green coffee seeds or even cherries in some cases, as in Ethiopia. But then on the other end of the chain, usually, I mean, roasters or buyers in the consuming countries, they don't know anything about coffee farming, right? So how, like, it's very rare that someone who is buying green coffee on the consuming end of the value chain would be able to give input into how farmers might improve their qualities, because it's the whole value chain is so long and there are so many steps in between that it's just removed from the product, right? The product at the producing side is a different product than it is when it ends up in the roastery, essentially.
Hello. Someone was calling me. Sorry.
Okay. There was a little break. Yeah, I was just saying, the product when you buy it at origin is green coffee, and that's a very different product from when it actually arrives and is processed in the consuming country when it becomes roasted coffee. And so again, you say this as though it was easy, but when you first travel to origin, I bet it took a lot of observation, a lot of conversations with farmers to really understand enough about growing coffee and about processing coffee in order to even begin to develop these ideas, these recipe ideas that you've come up with, no?
Yeah. Actually, something new. So even the first official training in post-harvest pop up 2 years ago, something like that. So it's something really, really new, where the creativity is welcome, because everyone was doing like a mechanism, really over in technique of fermentations. And then what you are doing is basically taste the fresh fruit after be fermented, and is where the producers are having an idea of how the lot is gonna be, because the mucilage is having a really strong flavor. So after ferment, and then if you ferment the fresh fruit and then you taste the coffee, then it's giving to you a lot of information. So it's an amazing feeling when you connect all this, and it's actually really, really interesting. And trying to help them to say, okay, this is tasting as strawberry or apple or whatever, and they are trying their uh, their flavors registers are slightly different in, for example, in the tropic than in Spain. So yeah, it's like good to find a point where, okay, it's I don't know, guayabana, or a fruit that you don't know, and then you taste, and then you say, okay, it's this. So you are learning at the same time. So yeah, I think that being open-minded, try to reduce your risk and so on. I think that it's a really funny job to do.
Yeah, definitely, and you're doing it really well. And just so people might have a better idea of the sort of recipes that you come up with. Right now, we have 2 coffees in our product range that are from a farm in Nicaragua, Un Regalo de Dios. And one of them, the process is called Honey Glory, and I believe that's one of the recipes that you've developed, no?
Yeah. And it's really interesting to taste the different this recipe in different origins, and see the terroir and so on. But yes, what we are doing here, it's an anaerobic fermentation in order to keep madurando.
Ripening process. Yeah.
I understand fermentation as ripeness, or let's say continuity of ripeness. So that's why we are doing this kind of fermentation. Then what is happening is that you reduce the risk of over fermentation once you move this coffee into a rising bed to be dried, and then the flavors in conclusions are much more clean.
Mm-hmm.
What is basically very, very important for us, have really clean flavors, defined profiles, and so on.
And the anaerobic fermentation part is in between the depulping and the moving the coffee cherries to the raised bed to dry, or do you just put them in bags, or where do you ferment them anaerobically?
In cubos, in a big cans.
Vats. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you put water filter in order to avoid the oxygen going inside the fermentation atmosphere.
Yeah.
And then this the gas, which is the output of the fermentation, could leave through the water in forms of bubbles.
Yeah. Okay. Very exciting. Yeah. So anytime any of you guys out there see funny names like Honey Glory or Natural Mystique on our packaging, you will know that it's a right side recipe. Well, this has been really, really interesting. You know, we could probably go on for hours and hours talking about all of this. But I did want to open it up for a couple of questions, if there are any from the audience, if you have some time to stick around. See if anyone has a question.
They have questions.
Any questions? Might also be frozen. Nothing has moved down there in a while. I don't know. But if there aren't any questions, maybe just going forward, do you have any new and exciting experiments or things planned for the coming year, now that you'll hopefully be able to travel again?
Yeah, I would like to experiment some with the recipes that we build in Espírito Santo in Brazil. And produce some naturals. It would be really, really interesting. But honestly, I don't know if this year will be the year or maybe next year. So yeah, I think that things will happen and no plans, because this year I think that it's the best way of behave.
Take it as it comes and go with the flow.
Yes, like this.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Joaquín, for being here and answering all my questions. Talking to us
Thank
a little
you
bit
for your
about what
interesting
you do
questions.
and how you do it. I'm super, super grateful to be working with you, and that you share your coffees with us, and that we get to taste the amazing results of all your hard work. And,
Thank you very much.
I hope it continues that way. Thank you, my friend, and I will hopefully see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Enjoy.